activity. So in summation, all these transformations are all in these elliptic incomplete integrals are all representing wavelengths of what you need to hear ghosts. Now it's not exactly accurate, but it's a way to approximate. You obviously need a couple more formulas, right? I see it because it's area under current. I want to be a little conservative on this. I'm not sure. I'm making an argument. Peterman and Glacier, they all knew what they were doing. They all were trying to quantify ghosts by being non-plane about it. Area under the curve, guys. There's so many hints, right? Elliptic modulus. I'm just modding that concept of integrals. I like that. Now, if you're a math prof, you're like, would corporations ever infect you with paranoia? No, they wouldn't. They're all sane. Angular eccentricity. There's just hints people draw. I feel so bad if people don't know this. I finally learned this. Like, I was like, huh. This is the same way to explain weird stuff you see in the algorithm that seemed to show like a deity is worth talking to you. Right? So you define it with memoromorphic functions, right? If you can record the wavelength and you can draw something that shows a rate of change, right? That's different from what you had before with elliptic functions. There you go. And you all have it in the same group. Or it's just you. You have what could be paranormal activity. It's like a disease. Or not, or an event. And the complex plane is the plane in which the paranormal exists. This is the imaginary axis, right? They're making this really plain. They all saw ghosts. And all these weird incomplete integral formulas, they're all scientific evidence of ghosts. Now what you need is the voice recorder that got these waves, the wavelengths in the first place. And once you have it, you can generate paranormal activity all day, every day. Once you listen to it long enough. Now the reason that you know they're lying because it's called complex plane. This is difficult to explain. I'm not sure if I want to talk about this. I don't want to be real. I want to be imaginary, right? You have the real and then you have the imaginary, right? The x-axis is real, and the y-axis is imaginary. But these formulas that appear to make sense, they do, if it's this class, right? And there's domains, of course. There are domains, right? The x domain, the y domain. So the reason why the y-axis has, it's arbitrary. It is really arbitrary. So because some people, when they describe reality, they have different layers of abstraction. The simplest layer is obviously two axes. Yeah, and honestly, this is called well, it's now out, and I'm sure people are mature enough. So the I with the y is the imaginary, and now why would you attach the coefficient of y? So why would you define reality in 2 dimensions? Because a wave is in 2 dimensions. Going back to what I said earlier. The geometric representation of z is, it only exists because I is the 3rd dimension. Right? We don't want to define I as having 3 variables, right? This is one of those things, those a-hole statements that you don't really want to mention. At least with my friends. I think they'd be traumatized. Right? It's conjugate z, right, in the complex plane. Z bar, right? Right, you got to measure the average, right, the rate of change. In the imaginary part, can imaginaries be coefficients attached to something? Yeah. So if you ever looked at a time series or a categorical variable time forecast model, we can add arbitrary coefficients to get rid of the margin of error. And the margin of error exists when you're trying to process a sound wave. So you really don't need to visit haunted houses. Just get the sound wave. You don't have to travel there. Just need to hear the sound wave, and there you go, the ghost of it, and you can talk to it. In the corner of your own home. Now, someone needs to find that sound wave. So chances are a ghost is created, they record their own sound wave as they die. And then to replace every once in a while. The joke is you have to find the machine somewhere. And once you hear the sound wave, your brain is processing it with color synthesis. You know, it's seeing something else. Now, can you get demonically possessed by sound? Yeah, you can. Right? Have you ever heard of mass media persuasion? It's possible. You get subconsciously influenced. That's where demonic possession comes from. And out of those 6 enharmonic transformations, it could be one of those. It's probably not. But those are templates to understand which sound waves get you to kill people, right? Once you listen to it. Right? Certain sounds, right? Remember the Lavender Town thing? It commits people to commit suicide. That could be argued to be a form of demonic possession, right? If you're witnessing something else when you're channeling the sound wave, you're witnessing a demon trying to possess you, right? As it processes information, you know, through, and of course you can quantify it in the form of signal processing. Right? A lot of these complex and Fourier analysis, a lot of these things are designed to quantify demonic possession. They're designed to quantify Nephilim angels, right? Because you can only interpret the supernatural through a wavelength, through a radio tower, right? Or radio. That's why the radio was invented. This is what Tesla was hiding when he got rid of his blueprints. His radio is special. It records all the possible wavelengths in the known planet called Earth that represent all the paranormal activity that exists. There's sound waves we are not exposed to, and there's a good chance there's still undiscovered sound waves. You see those cursed houses, right? Where you see some lady walking. She recorded her death in a sound wave. That's basically what this is. Now the joke is those who hear the sound wave actually hide evidence of it. And those who can record them getting killed, and you wonder why it fades, it's because the person who gets possessed actually hides evidence of that sound wave. You can no longer see it. Because it persuades them, right? If you ever heard of hypnosis, the sound wave puts the person in a hypnotic trance. So corporations deploy these kind of sound waves. It could be demonic, it could be something. Right? your sound wave, and you might be playing a sound generated by a neural network. You don't know. Right? Technically, it is generated by a neural network, but well, you know, there's an argument. There's a sound wave no one wants to hear about or talk about. Now, the sound wave can arbitrarily be generated by a plant. Now here's the other cool thing about sound waves like this that are of a deity nature. You can actually incorporate the sound wave into your psyche and replay it in your head all the time, so you keep communing with it. You can get protected, or that thing can live within you, whatever you call it, right? But like technically, when you listen to a sound, whatever sound or visual is demonstrating the sound, technically is inside you, right? All thoughts are within you, right? And of course, you can define this. Define it as a geometric representation, of course. Now, why use two polar? Because it's too much work to do polar coordinates, you guys. It's too much work to do this stuff. Well, when will we need to do this? I'll tell you when. When you actually want to cast magic. The magic will come in the form of a technological innovation, of course. That's the substitute for, and you're trying to actually get back to magic. People don't want to be playing about it, of course. Polar equation of a curve. Wavelengths, like sine, this thing, that's a wavelength for possibly a psionic connection, right? The Archimedean spiral. All these are attempts, and they all saw it. They saw the radio. A lot of these people, and Tesla was not the only one that invented the radio. That captured all the sound waves that represent all the supernatural phenomena. You do not need to drive randomly in the middle of the night. You just have to listen to it. And the funny thing is, you replay that sound wave over again, you can actually develop immunity to whatever that paranormal the effects of the paranormal phenomenon. Because that sound wave, once your brain, it's like an antibody. It protects you. And then to commune with it, you start upgrading yourself. You can mentally evolve. The polar roads, right? These are more ways to quantify paranormal activity. And science can start studying it. And you can finally start using technological advancements and fuse it with paranormal activity. Now clearly, you can also graph roses differently, but that's the main purpose. Paranormal activity can be defined by petals. Now, why would this? Now, and the funny thing is, if it represents a plant, I'll give you a little hint. Chances are they can emit sound waves. People are just not going to be playing about this. Like Grandy, like a lot of these people know. They all were found the sounds. So you're wondering why teach us? Because someday you may need to merge with something paranormal to lead a corporation. The corporation's like, well, you don't have to do that. Some of these operate like a clock. You can move because of the sound wave is, here's the other trick. Now you say, if the wave doesn't exist, can it still function? Yeah. And in theory, you can if, and I'll give you an if someone else remembered the sound wave through a third party, right? third exposure, right? It's like smoke exposure. Got exposed to the noise. And then once you think of it, it actually goes out of your brain and it starts spreading. And it's spreading to other people who hear it too. No need. Now, the other people hear that sound wave, and they can't help but spread it more, and thus it keeps spreading. Radio coordinates, and there's so much to look at. But yeah, basically. The quadrifolium. That's another. This is another. This is another sound wave, sonic sound wave. It's definitely got cosine and sine specifications. And how people discover it, they just study a sound wave, they find that's weird, draw it. And as for how they found out the sign and how they came up with this in the first place, believe it or not, I'll tell the truth, they didn't use any mathematical proofs. They just drew random shit. That is exactly what happened. And as for how they found out the sine and cosine existed, well, remember you go on a website, you find website templates. And back then, there used to exist drawing templates for artists to draw stuff, right? And some of the most common, there were two types of common templates, the sine wave and the cosine wave. And there are other ones, right? So cosine, tangent, secant, right? Those were all used to be drawing templates to draw stuff. Paranormal activity. There you go. There's no context now. You would just assume it was derived mathematics. It never was. It was a drawing. And the drawings had pi and 2 theta, right? It had stuff. This stuff like came way later. And people needed to sell this to the major leagues, right? Sell it for consumer purchase. The 4-leaf clover can generate paranormal phenomena. Apparently. I didn't know about that part. I can admit it out. It depends on the circumstances on when it does. And of course, you can capture the wave. Now, Tesla's a smart one. How does he capture these sound waves from these plants, right? If he were to, right? That's this is the funny thing about Tesla. He played around with different sound generations, right? You see how GarageBand can generate different sounds. He just played with a bunch of different sounds. Yes, he experimented with a bunch of them, and eventually create paranormal phenomena. He knew which main parameters of sound he had to dial. Sine, cosine, where to start with? Cosine, cosine, tangent, right? Whatever that is. And the trisectrus is another. This is just a breakdown of wave. I think about this. The Limicon, trisectrus, these ones. There's so many ones, right? Tesla played with all of them. Right. He just plays with it. He's like, you know what? Fantastic. I finally can create my own spirits in theory, you can you can definitely create your own 3D waifu with paranormal activity. You would obviously can get magic runes, so this is where the concept magic comes from. And right now in today's world, the magic which is insights can create tech. Right? Isn't magic paranormal and phenomenal? You use paranormal phenomena to make tech. Half cycle spiraling polar. After the pole more than one circuit until it reached the inscribed circle. This type of stuff you study. Yeah. Tesla. Now, can you study different sounds? Yes, you can. I believe. In theory, when you play a sound to the flower, the flower or the petal, the rose, pings a sound back. You just keep experimenting with it. I could be wrong. Where you sniff something and a certain sound gets emitted. Plants emit sound. Here it is. Stress certain plants are an ultrasonic sound that is undetectable to the human ear. Plants are a portal to the spirit world. The spirit world is defined mathematically by these formulas in the form of sound wavelengths. Right, that's why irrational numbers are a thing. People just don't want to be playing about it. The rose and the petal, the roses are our way of getting into it. It's your way of communicating with the UFOs, right? In the context of graphing polar angles, right? In the world of the known, in the world of the unknown. Plants scream when they're cut, right? They emit noise. So that's why the scion comes from. Now the corporation, how did they obtain it? There's obviously a lot of cursed objects that companies buy. And they emit a strange sound. And you hear it. And something appears, hops up in your mind, appears before you when you're exposed to the sound. That's all that it boils down to. Right? Sounds carry information about the physiological state of the plant, right? It gives you physiological information about whatever it is that came from it. The plant necessarily does not have to be a plant, keep in mind. It is relating to the branch biology that deals with normal function of living or Jainism and other parts. Right? It came in the pockets before, so can the plants do other things? Tesla may have some cursed objects too. And maybe the plant screams without getting cut. So honestly, a lot of the paranormal activity either came from a recording, and it got recorded in the plant. That's the most common one. There's probably a specialized plant that emits a sound. It's probably of an exotic species. And they did some weird things to the plant. You cannot find the plant because It's designed so the evidence is hidden. It hypnotizes people, right? Let's look at hypnosis. The sound hypnosis, right? Might as well be mature. Scott knows about hypnotizing sounds, right? Hypnosis. There's definitely sound waves that hypnotize people. Can you be hypnotized by music, right? It's music hypnosis, never mind. Audio hypnosis. That's pretty much what paranormal activity is. Demonic possession is audio hypnosis. All of it is. We already are quantifying paranormal activity. We just don't understand. We have the what do you call it? The templates to understand it. We just haven't tried contemplating it any further. This is how science dips its toes into the paranormal. You might be able to, that is what makes up the afterlife. You can hypnotize yourself. There might be some sine waves that are malicious. You don't know. It's musical brainwashing. Now, some people get exercised. There might be legitimate activity. That's because a certain sound wave is emitted, and they snap, crackle, and pop. And the exorcist is using a certain plant, or they're exposed to a certain plant in the past, and you mentally replay that sound wave to purify someone. Right, you can play a different sound to get someone out of hypnosis, mentally speaking. Anyways, yeah, this is an interesting topic. I'm gonna find it out.